So in the event of like a data breach, fraud, bankruptcy, who is liable for the loss of these digital owned assets?
That's a super good point. There's a standard answer to that, and there's a worrying answer to that. So it depends on what you're talking about. So if you're talking about cryptocurrencies, for example, everything that has to do with, whether you own Bitcoin and whether you've transferred them to me if you are paying for a service or something, I don't need to ask anyone in the world. I just look at the blockchain. I can see that you actually did that transfer, that it was really authorized by you, etc. So you are the sole custodian of your assets if you are talking about crypto. Okay. I'm the sole responsible for checking that that transfer went through. Mm-hmm. So users are really, this is the standard answer. Users, the owners of stuff, they are the sole responsible for being the custodian of basically the private keys that control those things.
Right.
This is the standard answer. But when you start digging, you realize that with especially NFTs, not with cryptocurrencies, but with NFTs, this is not really how most applications have it built. Going back to what you write in the blockchain, right? You need to write, we're talking about unique themes, right? So in the blockchain, you would like to write, okay, the identifier of that thing, a number, who owns it, right? This is still true, people write that. But then what is this thing? And this is the crucial point. What that thing really describes, most of the times, is basically just a URL, an external address to internet, to a private server, that will return to you what that thing really is. So, for example, if I go to OpenSea and I check one of the most famous fantasy video games in soccer that have been going on there, you can go there, you can see the card of the football player, it's been changing, oh, that's amazing. When you actually check what OpenSea is displaying for you, OpenSea is forced to go to this private company's servers, download the image of what that is, the state, whether it has level 40 or strength 50. All this data is stored in a private server, not in the blockchain. So it's not true that I'm the custodian of that asset anymore. Actually, if those private servers go down, they're switched off, even for legislation. It could not be a badly intentioned action. It could be some mistake because they have to close down operations, right? All those assets are gone, all of them. And you cannot do anything, basically, in that respect, absolutely nothing. You lose all the stuff you bought. So what I'm saying is that the standard answer is superficial. When you apply that to NFTs, in general, you have to really dig deeper and check whether this standard answer still applies. And in a massive amount of cases, it does not. Right now, maybe I can bring up a very important topic that just recently happened.
Sure.
In that regard, right? So because users most of the time, they just want to see it, they see the baseball card or whatever there, and they just really don't care about what's behind. But legislation does. For example, a few weeks ago, there was a lawsuit filed against Dapper Labs and NBA Top Shots, which is they are pioneers. They are guys I really respect. And the video game they've built, or the game they've built, was about trading basketball cards, right? Now the lawsuit is against those cards being considered actually securities. That means, again, that we're on the previous paradigm where the game has to become a bank. That means basically that they are, in a sense, saying that the custodian of those cards, they're really not the users, in a sense.
Okay.
At a deeper level, what the judge has been starting to agree, and I think it's not fully resolved, so we have to follow what that's going to lead to, is that the success of those were considered an investment, but not just an investment. It's just an investment that depends on others for the price of that card to continue to be, reasonable or go up or down, etc. It doesn't depend on you. What that really is, if you look at what the judge really said, it's basically that both the infrastructure, the marketplace, and the data that card really, those basketball cards describe, that's really not owned by the owner. That's really fully controlled by just one single company, right?
Okay.
Which is part of the Howey test that the judge went through. And this is just the beginning, I think. It's just starting to show to the world that if we use the blockchain just partially, like, oh, just some of the benefits that I can write the owner.
Right. Like on part of the transaction, on part of the agreement.
Yeah, like not fully, like not in a fully decentralized. If it's fully decentralized, then yes, we can forget about the banks, in a sense, right? And we can run all these operations in a fully decentralized, the small companies can give away all these things and they just depend on you. So yeah, you have more responsibility, but we don't have this responsibility as developers, right? But if you just use the blockchain partially, because it's complicated, right? There's a reason, the technical reason why these things are hard.
Okay.
And I just write the owner, but I don't write, for example, what that thing really is describing, that I still keep it on my private servers, for example.
Right.
Then you start having trouble with legislation for a very good reason, because you can destroy everything you gave to the users. These are sources of scams as well. People, they just change what those private servers are returning to you. So yeah, legislation is catching up with not using the blockchain in a properly decentralized way, which goes back to your question of who owns what. Yeah, you own just a serial number and a URL to an external private server in many cases.
Right.
So that's not using the blockchain properly.
Right. Interesting. I guess it's not using the blockchain fully to the full extent, right? And there's kind of an inherent promise within NFTs, it being a Web3 technology, it being blockchain based. There's an inherent promise that the entire life cycle of the use of that NFT will be based on the blockchain. I mean, that's the assumption, I suppose, but I don't know if people are really thinking about that or really understand.
I think users, they just want to see that it works.
Right.
The users, then they complain a lot when this thing is a scam or when the company goes away. So, but when they enter, they just care about it being beautiful and working and all that stuff. I think it's legislation's responsibility to make sure that what you are actually doing is safe.
Right.
And I kind of agree with some of these actions that are being taken in that respect. We need to work hard for technology to actually, in the case of NFTs, to really provide you with a security that you expect when you're using the blockchain.
Yeah, exactly.